Hey YouTube, it's John here. Hey, today we're going to install this whirlibird, and it's to help ventilate this shipping container to give it some airflow. So what we did is we bought an adapter for the roof, and that helps to seal that hole we're going to cut on top and attach a whirlibird to it. Now, unfortunately, when I recorded this originally, it didn't record the sound. So I'm going to voice over all the steps. But we're going to get through it, and we'll see how we got this thing mounted up here. So stay tuned, and let's get started. You'll have to install some lower vents in order to get some cross ventilation. You can watch that video. It's posted already. And here's a better shot of that adapter. I got this on Amazon. Don't remember what the cost was, but it was fairly reasonable. It's got a 12-inch hole on top, so you'll need a 12-inch whirlibird base to fit this thing. This thing is preformed to fit the roof on your container. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to drill a hole on the back side and the front side and just kind of tack it down so I can mark the other holes, and that way I'm certain it doesn't move. Now when you tack it down, just put the screws in halfway, because you're going to pull them back out afterwards, and the manufacturer suggests that you pre-drill all these holes, which is a little bit of work, but I think you'll get a better finished product. So tack this thing down, and remember, just put the screws in halfway just to hold it, and once you got it secure, go ahead and start marking your holes. Now, I don't know if this thing is laser cut or how accurate it is, but what you want to do is mark this adapter so you don't accidentally turn it 180 degrees after you've drilled those holes. Because if those holes aren't perfect, then they're all going to be off and you're just going to be frustrated. These are self-tapping screws, so it will screw into your container, but you'll have an additional hole. So give it a good mark and no better. Once you get all your holes drilled, you're ready for the center hole. Now, I'm not cutting a 12-inch hole on the top of my container. So what I end up doing is just on the very top of the ridge, I'm going to cut that out 10 inches long and as wide as that ridge is. And the reason for that is if I have any leakage in this thing, it's going to settle in the valley and not up on the ridge. And that way, when the sun comes out the next day after a rain, it'll just evaporate off. So I think I risk losing a little bit of airflow, but I don't want to open my container and see a puddle of water on the bottom. So in a moment here, I'm going to measure that out and you'll see what I'm talking about. Right there, that ridge, I measured the opening on the bottom of the screen of the adapter, and it's about 10 inches. So I found the center, and then I'm going to go 5 inches either direction, and I'm going to cut this thing out with an angle grinder with a cutting blade on there. Now, I don't know that these whirlybirds pull in so much air that this will make a difference at all. But if it does make a difference, and it does restrict my airflow, I could always come back with a hole saw and drill some holes from inside of the container. So I'm getting ready to cut this hole out, and you can see what I was talking about earlier, about just cutting that top ridge. And that way, if some water gets inside there, it's going to go down in that valley and it'll evaporate off later on. Take your time doing this cut. It's good to be conservative. You could always come back later and you can cut from inside the container, or like I would do, I would just get a hole saw and just make some venting holes up in there. Don't forget to wear your safety gear. This stuff throws sparks everywhere. When I get this hole finished up, you can see it's a pretty significant opening. It's going to be 10 inches long, and I think that rib is probably 4.5, 5 inches wide. So that's going to provide enough room to suck some air through those vents I installed earlier. And look on the angle. See how I got it right at the top? And look, I have about 3 to 4 inches where if water pooled, it wouldn't drip down into my container. So I think this is going to work fine, and there's always a fix for it if it doesn't. There, you can see that hole. That's a pretty decent sized hole. I'm going to take a file and just clean these edges up. Now these containers, they're prone to rusting. So these metal shavings and stuff, you'll want to wipe those off. Keep a broom up there with you while you're working on your container, and you can sweep them off, because those little shavings will rust and eat through this primer eventually. Not that it's going to be a big hazard to anybody, but you know, you paid good money for your container. You want to keep it clean. Now, I don't know if it's necessary or not, but I just take some primer and cover up all those bare edges. That way we slow the rusting process a little bit, and that includes the screw holes. What I was explaining here in the video is I was surprised that I just chose a random color. It's called satin almond, and it's a perfect match. Who knew that over in China, when they built this container, they came up with satin almond for a finish. But thank goodness they did. Turns out it's available, and it looks great in the end. And you can also use it to touch up any spots on the sides of the container. So we're ready for some install. But before we do, we're going to have to put some caulking. And I used a roofing adhesive caulk combination thing. It's supposed to be good, but before you put that on there, you need to scuff up the paint a little bit. It'll help it stick. So I'm going to put a bead on the outside of the holes I drilled and on the inside of the holes I drilled. And once I get this thing screwed down, hopefully it'll squeeze out and seal that edge really well. If not, you can go back and I mean, you got a whole can of caulk. So load it up all you want. It certainly won't hurt it, and it may even help. So be generous with this stuff. If you put too much, it's just going to squeeze out, and you can scrape it off with a piece of cardboard or a towel. Now, I'm told that you can't use a towel wet with water, because water somehow makes this stuff set up quicker or makes it set up. So they recommended alcohol, but you know what? Just go ahead and make a mess of it. It's the top of your container. You're not going to see it. Put it on there. I like to get kind of close to the holes I drilled. That way, when it squeezes, then I get some of that caulking down into those screw holes when I'm putting in the screws, and that'll help waterproof those holes too. So a good bead on the outside. I'm also going to put a bead on the inside, and I'm just going to let the pressure of me screwing down that adapter do its thing. Now we're ready for our whirlibird adapter. So make sure you orient it the correct direction. Line up a couple of holes that you can still see, and set it on there gently. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to start putting some screws in. However, I'm not going to tighten any screws until I get them all in. That way, if there's a problem, it's easier to fix if I don't have some of those self-tappers cranked down. Now what I did was I'm going to turn down the torque on my drill so it doesn't over screw them, if that's a thing. And I'm just going to work my way around, get all the screws in, and then I'm going to work my way around again and snug them all up. And you'll see it'll start squeezing out that caulking, and it should make a nice seal. See how it squeezes that out? And we'll just keep moving until we get this thing all screwed in. It's starting to look good. See that caulking squeeze up through those screw holes? I'm hoping that'll give me a little advantage on waterproofing this thing. We'll find out here in a few days when it rains. So just keep working your way around, and then we haven't tightened anything yet. Just keep working your way around, and then we'll go back around and give everything a snug. All right, let's button this thing up. Make our way around. We're going to snug everything up. We're going to watch that caulk squeeze out those edges. At least that way we have some indicator that we put enough in there. If not, we're gonna add more. But you can see it squeezing out there. You can see it squeezing out the screw holes too. So that should help waterproof those screws. Now the manufacturer sent these screws with this. I would have used screws with washer, but that's just me. I'll use what they gave me. Okay, the last few screws to tighten down, and then we should be looking good. Now, if there's any voids along your edges, especially where it goes from a valley to a peak, I would take some caulking and just shove it up in there. Me, I'm just going to use my finger. And we'll just push it in them corners. This thing should form, not should, it does form well to your container. But you know, you're always going to have a few little gaps. So just get that caulking in there. After the next rain, we may come back and we're going to check, see if there's any leaks, of course, and we'll re-caulk this. But next time I'll use a silicone. It just seems to form better. This stuff is also an adhesive, so I guess it helps this adapter stick to the container rather than just using the screws. It was a little messy, but as long as it does its job, I'm perfectly happy with it. And there you have it. I'm pretty satisfied that that's a big enough hole to move some air through this container. I mean, you can see how much more you can actually create, but I think this will do the job, especially on a 20-foot container. Let's get this whirlibird mounted. 12-inch whirlibird on this adapter. Fits like a glove. Couple of self-tapping screws, and I think we're in business. So that's our whirlibird installation. I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed the content, please hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. I'd appreciate that too. Y'all have a great day. God bless you.